What does it really take to succeed in life? Is it the gift of natural talent, the relentless effort of hard work, or the tough lessons we learn from struggles and failures that slowly shape ordinary people into wiser, stronger, and more capable versions of themselves over time? The scholarship letter arrived on the same day I got fired from the restaurant. I stared at both pieces of paper on my kitchen table, one offering me a full ride to State University for academic excellence, the other terminating my employment for consistently slow service and poor customer interaction skills. At 18, I thought success was about being naturally good at things. My best friend Jake seemed to effortlessly excel at everything: sports, academics, social situations. He'd gotten into 3 Ivy League schools without breaking a sweat while I'd clawed my way to a single scholarship through 16-hour study days. But Jake never had to work in restaurants to pay rent. He'd never been fired for being too awkward to handle the breakfast rush efficiently. That night, my mom found me crying over the termination letter. "Mija," she said in her thick accent, settling beside me, "you think success is about not failing? Jake never gets fired. Jake never struggles. Everything comes easy to him." Mom laughed, but not unkindly. "Easy success teaches you nothing, Emma. Hard success teaches you everything." I didn't understand what she meant then. I thought she was just trying to make me feel better about being the kid who had to work twice as hard for half the recognition. College was supposed to be my fresh start. Away from Jake's effortless achievements, I could finally prove that my relentless studying would pay off. But freshman year hit me like a truck. Professor Williams's Economics 101 class destroyed my confidence within the first week. While other students seemed to grasp complex market theories intuitively, I struggled to understand basic concepts that came naturally to my classmates. Supply and demand curves should be self-explanatory, Professor Williams said during office hours when I asked for help. Perhaps you should consider an easier major. I left his office feeling like an imposter. Maybe I'd only gotten the scholarship through some administrative error. Maybe I didn't belong here after all. My roommate Ashley was everything I wasn't. Naturally brilliant, socially confident, effortlessly popular. She'd party until 2 a.m. and still ace exams I'd studied weeks for. "You stress too much," she told me one night, watching me highlight my economics textbook for the 3rd time. "Either you get it or you don't. All that studying won't change your natural ability." But I kept studying because it was the only tool I had. Midterms arrived, and I failed my first economics exam, despite studying every night for 3 weeks. Ashley, who'd crammed the night before, got a B+. I called home, sobbing. "Maybe I should drop out," I told Mom. "I'm not smart enough for this." "Emma," she said firmly, "intelligence isn't about how quickly you understand something the first time. It's about refusing to give up until you do understand." Her words reminded me of something I'd forgotten. I'd never been the smartest person in any room, but I'd always been the most persistent. Instead of dropping economics, I did something that felt radical. I embraced being bad at it. I started attending every office hour, asking questions that revealed my confusion rather than trying to hide it. I formed study groups with other struggling students instead of trying to keep up with the naturally gifted ones. Slowly, something shifted. Professor Williams, initially dismissive, began to notice my consistent presence. "You're asking better questions now," he said during one session. "You're not just memorizing formulas. You're trying to understand the underlying logic." By the end of the semester, I'd improved my grade to a B. Not brilliant, but proof that persistence could compensate for lack of natural ability. This became my pattern throughout college. While naturally talented students like Ashley coasted through courses that matched their abilities, I developed systems for conquering subjects that initially seemed impossible. By senior year, Ashley was struggling with advanced courses that couldn't be mastered through natural ability alone, while I developed learning strategies that allowed me to tackle any challenge systematically. "How do you do it?" she asked during finals week. "These upper-level courses are impossible." "They're not impossible," I said. "They're just hard. And I've been practicing how to do hard things for 4 years. The job market was brutal." After my 15th rejection, I sat in my car crying, wondering if my persistence would translate to the real world. Then I interviewed at Brighton Consulting, a firm helping struggling businesses improve operations. Ms. Rodriguez asked, "Tell me about a time you failed and what you learned." I told her about failing economics, getting fired from the restaurant, about being the slowest to understand concepts others grasped immediately. But those failures taught me to break down complex problems systematically, to find multiple approaches to challenges, and to be comfortable asking questions that expose what I don't know. Ms. Rodriguez leaned forward. "That's exactly what we need. Our clients are failing businesses run by people who've never had to develop problem-solving systems because success came naturally early on." I got the job. My first client was Thompson Manufacturing, a family business losing market share to competitors. The owner, Bill Thompson, reminded me of Jake, naturally charismatic but lost when traditional approaches stopped working. Over 3 months, I applied everything I'd learned from academic struggle to his operational challenges. Just like breaking down economics concepts, I helped Bill identify outdated process, like forming study groups. I facilitated employee idea sharing sessions. Within 6 months, Thompson Manufacturing increased profits by 30%. But Bill's comment crystallized everything. "You have something I never developed, the ability to systematically work through problems without obvious solutions." I was naturally good at business, so I never learned how to learn. Word spread about the Thompson turnaround. Within a year, I had more clients than I could handle, all business owners who'd reached the limits of their natural abilities. 5 years later, Ashley called. She'd been let go after struggling with new industry regulations that couldn't be navigated through charm and intelligence alone. "How do you learn things that don't come naturally?" she asked. "I've never had to do that." 6 months later, Ashley had found a new job and become her company's go-to person for complex regulatory challenges. By my 10th year at Brighton Consulting, I'd built a team of 20 consultants and worked with over 200 struggling businesses. Our success rate was remarkable. 85% of our clients achieved sustainable operational improvements within a year. But what I'd discovered was that our most successful interventions weren't about implementing brilliant strategies. They were about teaching business owners the same meta skills I'd learned through academic struggle: how to break down complex problems, how to ask productive questions, how to persist through confusion until clarity emerged. The turning point in my understanding of success came when I was invited to speak at my alma mater's business school. Standing in front of 200 bright-eyed students, I saw the same mix I'd been part of 10 years earlier, some naturally confident and charismatic, others working desperately hard to keep up. "How many of you consider yourselves naturally talented?" I asked. About half the hands went up. "How many of you feel like you have to work harder than everyone else just to keep up?" Most of the remaining hands rose. "Here's what I've learned in 10 years of business consulting," I continued. "The people who succeed long-term aren't necessarily the most naturally talented. They're the ones who've learned how to learn, how to adapt, and how to persist through challenges that don't have obvious solutions." I told them about Thompson Manufacturing, about Ashley's journey, about dozens of business owners who'd hit walls when their natural abilities weren't enough. The students in this room who are struggling the most right now are potentially developing the most valuable skills for long-term success. You're learning to systematically tackle problems that confuse you, to ask for help without shame, to persist through failure until you understand. After my presentation, a young man approached me. He looked exhausted and overwhelmed. "Ms. Garcia," he said, "I'm failing Professor Williams's economics class. I'm thinking about switching majors." I smiled, remembering my own experience with Professor Williams. "Before you switch," I said, "let me ask you this. Have you been attending every office hour?" I don't want to look stupid. Looking stupid in office hours is much better than being stupid on the exam. Trust me, I learned that the hard way. 2 years later, that student, David Park, graduated with honors and joined my consulting firm. His experience struggling through economics had taught him the same systematic approach to problem solving that had become our company's signature strength. Today, 15 years after that first economics failure, I run a consulting company with 200 employees across 5 states. We specialize in helping successful people and organizations navigate challenges that can't be solved through natural talent alone. But the most important lesson I've learned isn't about business success. It's about the nature of capability itself. Natural talent gets you started quickly and creates early advantages. Hard work builds competence and sustains progress over time. But it's the wisdom gained from struggling through failures that develops the meta skills necessary for long-term success: adaptability, systematic problem solving, resilience, and the ability to learn continuously. My friend Jake from high school, he's successful, but in predictable ways. He found careers that matched his natural talents and has done well within those boundaries. There's nothing wrong with that path. But when Jake's industry faced disruption 3 years ago, he struggled to adapt. He'd never had to develop the systematic learning skills that struggle had forced me to cultivate. The people who thrive in uncertain environments, who build lasting success across changing circumstances, are usually those who learned early that struggle is a teacher, not just an obstacle. Last month, I was invited to give the keynote address at the National Small Business Conference. Speaking to 2,000 entrepreneurs, I shared the insight that had become central to everything I'd built. Success isn't about avoiding failure. It's about developing such a strong relationship with failure that you can extract value from every setback, learn from every mistake, and adapt to every challenge. I looked out at the audience, a mix of naturally gifted entrepreneurs and grinding hard workers and people who'd struggled their way to success. The question isn't whether you'll face obstacles. The question is whether you'll let those obstacles teach you something that easy success never could. After my speech, a woman approached me with tears in her eyes. 20 years ago, I was told I wasn't entrepreneur material because I didn't have natural business instincts, she said. I almost believed it, but your talk reminded me that my struggles taught me things that instincts never could. I've built a company with 500 employees because I learned to systematically solve problems that naturally gifted people found overwhelming. Walking back to my hotel that night, I thought about 18-year-old Emma, crying over her restaurant termination letter and feeling inferior to naturally talented Jake. That girl couldn't have imagined that her struggles were actually preparations for the work she was meant to do. She couldn't have known that her failures were building the exact skills that would eventually define her success. The scholarship got me into college, but it was the struggles in college that taught me how to learn. Hard work sustained me through difficult courses, but it was the failures that taught me resilience. Natural talent might have made things easier, but it was the absence of natural talent that forced me to develop systematic approaches to mastery. Today, when young people ask me what it really takes to succeed in life, I tell them something that would have confused my 18-year-old self. Success isn't about being naturally gifted, though talent certainly helps. It's not even about working hard, though effort is essential. Success is about becoming the kind of of person who can learn from any situation, adapt to any challenge, and persist through any setback. And that kind of person is forged not in moments of easy victory, but in the crucible of struggle, failure, and the choice to keep going anyway. The tough lessons we learn from our failures don't just make us stronger, they make us wiser, more adaptable, and ultimately more capable of creating lasting success in an uncertain world. Sometimes the greatest gift isn't natural talent. Sometimes it's the necessity to develop something even more valuable, the ability to turn any struggle into a stepping stone toward who you're meant to become. But perhaps the most profound lesson came when I least expected it. 3 years ago, I was approached by the state education department to consult on why certain schools consistently underperformed despite having adequate resources and dedicated teachers. What I discovered challenged everything I thought I knew about success and failure. The underperforming schools had something in common. They were located in high poverty areas where students faced significant challenges outside the classroom. Most educators saw these challenges as insurmountable obstacles, but spending time with these students reminded me of myself at 18, struggling, overlooked, constantly told they weren't college material. I interviewed dozens of students who were failing academically, but demonstrated remarkable resilience in other areas of their lives. Maria Santos worked 20 hours a week to help support her family while maintaining a 2.5 GPA. James Washington had been in foster care since age 10, but still showed up to school every day, even when he had nowhere stable to sleep. These students weren't lacking intelligence or work ethic. They were lacking the kind of systematic support that could help them channel their struggle-earned wisdom into academic success. What if we're approaching this backwards? I suggested to the school administrators. Instead of trying to eliminate these students' challenges, what if we help them leverage the skills their challenges have already taught them? The principal, Dr. Martinez, looked skeptical. These kids are behind academically. They need remedial support, not empowerment speeches. Dr. Martinez, Maria Santos manages a household budget, negotiates with landlords, and translates for her parents at medical appointments. Those are sophisticated life skills that demonstrate analytical thinking and communication abilities. We're just not measuring them. I proposed a pilot program that treated students' real-world experiences as assets rather than obstacles. Instead of remedial math classes that felt disconnected from their lives, we taught mathematical concepts through scenarios they already understood, calculating the best deals on groceries, understanding interest rates on loans, analyzing the economics of their neighborhoods. Instead of traditional essay assignments about literature they couldn't relate to, we had students research and write about challenges in their own communities, using the same analytical skills required for academic success, but applied to topics they cared deeply about. Most importantly, we paired struggling students with mentors who had similar backgrounds, people who had transformed their own difficult circumstances into professional success. The results were extraordinary, but not immediate. In the first semester, academic improvements were modest, but something else was happening. Students were beginning to see their experiences differently. I never realized that taking care of my little brothers while my mom worked was actually developing leadership and time management skills, Maria told me during one of our check-ins. I thought it was just making me behind in school. James started connecting his experience navigating different foster homes with skills in adaptability and reading social situations. I know how to figure out what different people expect from me and how to fit in quickly, he realized. That's actually useful. By the end of the first year, our pilot program students showed significant improvements, not just in grades, but in something more important, their sense of capability and future possibility. Maria applied to college with an essay about how managing her family's finances had taught her analytical skills that would make her an effective business major. She received a scholarship to State University. James wrote about how his foster care experience had given him insights into social systems that would inform his goal of becoming a social worker. 3 colleges offered him admission. The program's success led to statewide implementation, but more importantly, it taught me something profound about the nature of potential. We live in a society that often mistakes privilege for talent and struggle for deficiency. But what I've learned through 15 years of consulting and 5 years of educational work is that struggle, when properly supported and channeled, develops capabilities that comfortable circumstances never could. The students who had to grow up fast often possess emotional intelligence beyond their years. The kids who had to solve complex family problems develop analytical skills that academic exercises can't teach. The young people who had to advocate for themselves in difficult situations learn resilience and communication abilities that privileged peers might never develop. But here's the crucial insight. These struggle-developed capabilities only become assets when someone helps students recognize and articulate them. Today, our educational consulting division works with 50 schools across 3 states, specifically focusing on helping educators recognize and develop the hidden strength that challenging circumstances create in students. We've documented that students from difficult backgrounds, when given appropriate support and recognition, often outperform their more privileged peers in areas requiring creativity, problem-solving, and resilience. But the program that makes me most proud is our Struggle to Strength mentorship initiative, where successful adults who overcame difficult circumstances work with current students facing similar challenges. Last year, I had the privilege of mentoring Destiny Williams, a 16-year-old whose mother struggled with addiction and whose father was incarcerated. Destiny was brilliant, but convinced she was damaged good who couldn't succeed in traditional academic environments. "Ms. Garcia," she said during our first meeting, "everyone treats me like I'm broken because of my family situation. How can broken people succeed?" I shared with her something that had taken me years to understand. Destiny, you're not broken, you're forged. There's a difference between something that's damaged and something that's been strengthened through pressure. Over the course of that year, I watched Destiny reframe her entire understanding of her circumstances. Her experience managing unpredictable home situations had taught her crisis management and emotional regulation skills that most teenagers never develop. Her role as a caretaker for younger siblings had developed her leadership abilities and sense of responsibility. Most importantly, her experience with family instability had given her profound empathy for others facing difficulties, a quality that would serve her well in her chosen field of counseling. Destiny graduated as valedictorian and received a full scholarship to pursue psychology. But more significantly, she now sees her difficult background not as something to overcome, but as preparation for the meaningful work she wants to do. "I want to work with kids like me," she told the local newspaper when accepting her scholarship. "Kids who think they're broken but are actually being forged into something stronger." Reading that interview, I was reminded once again that the most powerful transformations happen when people learn to see their struggles not as evidence of their inadequacy, but as proof of their resilience. This realization has become the cornerstone of everything I do, in business consulting, in educational reform, and in life. Whether I'm working with a failing business owner who needs to learn adaptation skills, or a struggling student who needs to recognize their hidden strengths, or a naturally talented person who needs to develop resilience for when easy success stops working, the principle remains the same. True success isn't about avoiding difficulties. It's about developing such a strong relationship with difficulty that challenges become opportunities for growth rather than evidence of limitation.